Okay, so just to be clear, this is the May 17th, 2021 meeting of the Justice and Equity Committee of the CRC. We have a full agenda, and apart from what was posted on the county website, we are actually going to go for the full 2 hours. And so because it was posted as an hour and a half, we will break at 5:20 for public comment. It is a work session, and just for clarity, this group is going to be discussing our continued rollout of the committee's work plan for the presentation at the Thursday general CRC meeting. We are not making any discussion or not making any decisions on any kind of action, and so I just want to make sure you guys are, those of you in attendance are welcome to listen in. What we've done historically with the public is to ask that during the course of the regular meeting that the public turn off their video and make sure they're muted, just so that all of the faces of the committee members prioritize to the top of the Zoom link, not because we don't want to look at you or share with you. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, we appreciate that. And so just again to discuss the intended program for today for the agenda. Give me 1 second to catch back up. For today, we are going to be continuing the discussion around the committee's report to the CRC and a continued discussion on supportive findings. Okay, so we have the meeting started and recording. Sharon was nice enough to send out yet again the minutes for our May 10, 2021 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look those over? And if so doing, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes as, okay, motion from Kevin to approve the minutes from the last meeting. I need a second. Anyone second? Sharon, you'll second? Okay. I had two corrections. One is on the spelling of, one actually is a section where you gave credit to Kevin for a comment about the land and sea acknowledgement, native acknowledgement, and that was actually my part of the discussion for what it's worth, just so that it reflects the, so let me see if I can help you with, so it's page.
There I go, trying to credit for everybody else.
Well, our names get interchanged so often, I wonder if it wasn't just that, but Coast Salish acknowledgement is Coast Salish acknowledgement, page 4, Sharon, for your benefit, about a third to half the way down. And then just so the record reflects accuracy, Elexis Treaty from the National Park Service is ELEXIS. And because I think we missed it in the conversation, up in the bullet with where she is mentioned with Mr. Dolan as the native liaison, if you could just make that correction in the notes. That's all I had. Any other conversation on the minutes? Okay. All in favor of the.
Sorry, I'm trying to follow you. What's the, give me the spelling, just give me the spelling again, please.
ELEXIS.
Okay, thank you.
Elexis, and it's FREDY, and Elexis is the superintendent of the National Monument.
Okay.
Okay, motion and a second, and all in favor of the minutes as corrected, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? None. Okay, the minutes are approved. We added one member of the public, Isaac. Just if you'd like to make a public comment, we're going to save that time for 20 minutes past 5. We'll open up for public comment at that time. Okay, has everyone seen the prosecuting attorney's comments back from Jane's submission? I think I'd like to start the conversation there. So we're going to go through ultimately Jane's document and just kind of proof that and approve that section by section here in a minute, just to prepare for Thursday's presentation. But I would like to discuss that that document from, or that reply, a multi-page reply from the prosecuting attorney's office. Any comments to start us off? Jane, I saw your reply to the reply this afternoon, which I appreciate. I appreciated the tone. Hopefully there is some response from Randy about the impression of whether we were still sort of angling for oversight as opposed to advisory. Was that your sense from his comments?
Yeah, my sense from his comments is that so long as this commission has any oversight function, it's not going to be allowable. And so I've reached.
What's the background noise going on there? Could we?
That's my phone. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I reached out to him to find out if we could talk to him, because I think it's important that he's clear on what we want to do, what we want to propose rather, and have some discussion with him about that, so he is not interpreting oversight as strictly as he seems to be. So he's prepared to talk to me tomorrow at 2. So I wanted to discuss with all of you the issues we should be raising with him. And I think, from reading his response, it struck me how really important the creation of this commission is. And I don't want it to die on the word oversight. So we've got to have a very tough conversation with each other about that today, so that we can reach some agreement on how we want to try and make something possible in all of this. Because in my view, none of anything else that we're doing related to non-discrimination, issues of, trying to have that resolution on a safe and inclusive community, trying to breathe life into that. None of that will be possible if we don't start having greater citizen engagement with the county on these issues. So I'm not prepared to let this commission idea go. And I want to think about, what do we want to talk to Randy about, what can be done? Given that he's come back to us and said, well, if it's oversight, that violates state and federal law. So I'm not interested in having a bun fight about this. I'm interested in finding out what's possible. So that's kind of where I stand on that. So I am meeting with him tomorrow at 2. And what I need from our conversation today is to figure out, how do I approach that conversation? What kinds of things do we want to put to him in terms of our interest in seeing this commission idea go to our full commission for review and go on the ballot.
Any other? Kevin, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm interested in, we'll wait, but if maybe the sheriff could reply to this during public comment. I'm curious, we have oversight in our county already in different ways, not necessarily from a commission, but 3 years ago, we passed an ordinance, the county council did, that created us as a sanctuary county, that had a mandate on all officials within the county. And maybe I missed something. Maybe there was a change in the end to make that simply advisory, and it's not mandatory. If that's the case, that wasn't broadly advertised. But I question, I understand that, there's case law as well as constitutional arguments with regard to elected officials being independently elected officials who control their own staff and so on. That doesn't, however, and I actually read some of Osborne versus Grant County and some of the other sightings. I don't I don't understand how there can't be any oversight over any elected official. That and so I think there's a difference between what may be suggested for opportunity to be. And so I'm unsure. And I really respect the prosecutor's memo and his what he's brought before us. To your point, Jane, there may be a difference between what we're saying and how it's being interpreted. The other thing, however, though, is I hope this isn't just an advisory committee. We're being told time and time again, oh, it's got to be advisory. We might as well go home if we're not going to be bold and really try and address some of these issues. And for me, the sheriff's department and the prosecuting attorney's office are not an issue. I've actually heard from county employees who I think we do have some issues within the county. And so a broad reaching commission that would be over the entire county that would be able to, address some of these issues and put forward some ideas, I think is valuable.
Mhm.
Do you want to, sorry, you guys.
It's okay, Kyle. When you're not with us, you're saving people's lives. So if the beeper goes off because you normally are saving people's lives, that's a pretty darn good excuse.
That's the smoke alarm. If it was only my pager.
Oh,
Okay, don't cook and don't cook and meet at the same time. Okay. Do we want to hear from Sheriff Krebs at the moment to Kevin's question, or do we want to wait till public comment time? Any comments, Sharon?
I think if we have a question for the sheriff, we should ask it now.
Okay, Sheriff Krebs, did you hear the question? And
well, I did, but I don't know that I followed the actual question itself.
let me clarify it, Sheriff. And again, I don't mean to, I'm not putting you or your department on the spot with this at all. I'm just trying to broadly think, and I truly believe what I said a moment ago, which is everything anyway. My point is, it feels to me that a few years ago when the county council passed an ordinance making us a sanctuary county, that the way I read it applied to all appointed and elected officials in the county. And so that was providing a mandate, and therefore kind of some of the issues that are being raised as far as not being able to have oversight seems to be that we already do. In that case, what am I missing?
Well, I don't know that you are missing anything. They passed passed an ordinance, and as the sheriff, I take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of the State of Washington, the laws of the State of Washington, and the laws of San Juan County. Those are the laws, those are the rules, and whether I guess if you have to put somebody in place to make sure that we're following those rules, that's kind of what the public eye is, as I think I alluded to one of the previous meetings, especially with the sheriff's office, because we're always under public scrutiny. That's just law enforcement in general. You've got the fourth branch of the government, as they call them, the media. You got social media, you got, people doing public records requests. If we were going to violate those laws, those rules, it's going to be found and brought to the public light, which would be the exact same thing that this oversight position would be doing. Basically, the oversight position, the person would just be sitting there watching and making sure that everything's being done correctly, which we're already doing. I don't know if that answers your question, and maybe I don't quite get what you're getting at, but
your initial statement did, Sheriff,
yeah.
Which is that an ordinance was passed. Now, the other issue is, and I hadn't thought of it that way, but I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah. We, as I've had to remind the commission several times, so now I remind myself, the Charter Review Commission and the county charter has no authority to pass laws. That is very exclusively that authority is exclusively granted to the legislative body of San Juan County, which is the county council. And so that is not distinguished in the memo we're referring to, but that is an important difference here. What I'm getting at is that I guess I still feel like having a commission that is paying attention to these issues, and again, as sheriff, not just to your department, but countywide, I think could add value. And for me, the difference between that and just the public paying attention is that, like any of us, when we're appointed to something or we're part of a body and our task is to do something, you're more likely to do it.
Right. But are we having problems with it now? I mean, because you could continue on. You can appoint someone to watch over us, then you can appoint someone to watch over that person to make sure that person's watching over us. Then you appoint someone to watch over that person to watch over that person.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Jane has her hand up. Is this a follow-up or?
Yeah.
Kevin, is that okay, Jane? That Kevin finishes?
I can wait.
Okay, please. Okay, Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important. It's a bit hard for the sheriff to answer the question you're putting to him, Kevin, because it's a bit out of context for him. I don't think he necessarily is fully aware of what we're proposing in the way of a commission. Could I be wrong? I'm not sure, but you know, I mean, basically, we're trying to create this commission because, I mean, we want to be able to have that resolution number 31, 2020 be breathed into sort of the life of the county in everything that the government is doing. And so we want that that safe and inclusive community resolution to have meaning. And so the idea of creating a citizen-led commission, which we were proposing have sort of an oversight and advisory role, a dual role, is to work really in partnership with the county, those who are relevant electeds and appointeds in the county to work creatively on how to breathe life into that resolution, because it's not an ordinance. And so what we are wanting to propose is that, you know, this commission have a partnership, if you will, with the county that is trying to see that resolution has life and meaning, and that people begin to experience it in their experience living in the county. So I don't know if that makes sense, but Kevin, what you're talking about in terms of the oversight is the sticking point for Randy Gaylord. And what we need to think about is how we move through that, because if Sheriff Krebs has something, a comment on that, that would be great.
Yeah, well, without, I guess, having all the background and listening to all these, I don't really have a comment or an opinion on it, especially something that's not going to probably trump the legal comment that's already been given by Randy. I wouldn't have anything that's going to change that, I wouldn't think. So
Sheriff Krebs, just for my benefit, you've seen, you're familiar with the resolution 31-2020?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And you've been able to read the prosecutor's reply to our initial submission. It sounds like you've seen it. I
don't know that I've seen that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was probably just sent to you guys.
Okay. All right. I was making sure that you, it sounded from your suggestion like maybe you were aware of it or had seen it.
No, I'm aware of the resolution. So
I believe that's still privileged.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, at this point, I think the conversation then continues on the prosecuting attorney's reply. One of the questions is is the prosecutor, is Randy clear on our intention for, and I heard your point, Kevin, about, you know, wanting to maintain potentially some some oversight capacity, but is our intention to have this be largely advisory and focused. I think what I read from the prosecutor's comments focused on just the environment of the JEDI issues, so justice, equity, and inclusion, and making sure that that this commission we're proposing acts in that field and in that field alone. So it's not intimating that there's general oversight of all the activities or the decisions, frankly, of the judicial or the law enforcement world. So I think that needs to be made clear, and I'm not sure if that's been clear so far. So, okay, further conversation then on the prosecutor's reply. Any more to say about that? So Jane, you're going to meet with Randy tomorrow, and then do we have an avenue to talk once more as a group before? Is there anything that you feel we need to discuss before we present on Thursday? I mean, it seems to me that this back and forth and the prosecuting attorney's position can deeply impact the extent to which we report to the CRC. If you feel otherwise, I'd like to have that piece of the conversation right now.
Well, it's a bit of question for Kevin, to be honest with you, because I mean, but not just for Kevin, but for all of us, in that if we insist on having the word oversight used in our description of the function of this commission, then I think we may have difficulty with Randy, because I think he's going to take a legal interpretation of that word oversight in a manner that's not going to be workable. But I don't, Kevin, it looks like you have to step away. So
I'm sorry, it just started raining hard and I have to cover something. 'Cause
okay,
a bunch of work happening at my house, including
sure,
the roof.
okay, okay.
So bad timing.
Okay.
Look, if just the word oversight is the problem, then just call it the Justice and Equity Commission. It's the functions of that commission that matter most.
Right. And just before you run off and cover things up, I that is why I use the word review. Okay, a review function, instead of when I put the name, when I landed on a final name. And so I can talk to him about, the capacity of this commission to have a review function, because I think that's frankly equally important. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
And can I just ask clarification? And I'm sorry I missed it. I didn't see. I'm not remembering the change. So what's your proposed name of the commission?
Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Review Commission.
I would just call it commission and take out review. I don't
Okay.
think you need any of those in there. Don't have a descriptor.
Okay, and then when we talk about the mandate of it, do we want to speak to a review mandate?
Yeah, I think we are just as descriptive as possible in in defining the authority of this commission.
Okay.
And in review, I mean, do they have subpoena authority? Do they have?
No,
I
no.
mean, I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm freaking out.
yeah.
Those are the sorts of things that we want to define.
Right,
Oh.
right.
And I apologize. I gotta
Yep.
help my sisters get a tarp on a roof
Yep.
section that isn't covered right now.
Okay.
I will
okay,
hurry.
all right.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll try not to fall on the roof.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chair,
I think, go ahead, Jane.
I was just going to say, I think what we need to do before the end of this meeting is to look at the text that's in that document I sent you guys on Friday, because we have to have agreement on particularly the text for that before I talk to Randy tomorrow. But we also have to have agreement on all of the text so that I can prepare the presentation for Thursday. So
Agreed.
yeah,
I
ahead.
find it fundamentally pretty different. I mean, bullet number one or number one under issues deliberated is creation of an independent citizens law and justice oversight committee. That's remarkably or potentially different than review or advisory, and that is if the language, it's more than the title of the position, right? So if the language is the issue, and I see a little chicken and egg here because we need maybe clarification from Randy, or maybe we need to spend some time in this meeting reviewing his memo, just to make sure that we're clear. If that's the sticky point, and we just change the language first and then go through and evaluate for ourselves, what does that really mean? Okay, in the discussions that we've had, if a change from oversight to advisory or review committee is going to be sort of cut and paste out of the current document, what does that really mean for fundamental function? Because I think there's a lot to say there. So do you want to pull up the document and pull up the summary?
Yeah, do you want me to
Can't
pull
hear
it
you.
up or do you want to pull it up?
No, I have it here, and
Okay. And
I can probably screw up one more level of the meeting.
because I think it's also important you guys understand how I structured that document and why. We are moving from a document that strictly was the table we had before, and I tried to structure it such that it could become what will be a presentation.
Slides. You broke up just a little bit there, but to take it from
Right?
the
So pull down
So is it okay if it's done in that format? Sharon, did she freeze
a
for
little
you?
bit.
Yes, she did.
Can you hear me
Okay.
now, you guys?
So
Now I can.
yeah, you
Okay.
wanted to pull down?
Yeah, so I just wanted you to see the if you could scroll up a little bit, not side by side page view.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second and change the outlet. I'm sorry. Let's do it in the original. Okay, is that better? You able to see that?
If we can do the,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I can manage with that, yeah. You can't get rid of what's on the right side, I guess, eh? Your hide email
Uh,
box on the X on the top right-hand side there.
You can. Oh,
Click on the X. There you go.
I click on the X, it'll all go away.
Okay, yeah, no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, you're good. Sorry.
Is that big enough for you to see?
Maybe a little
Okay.
bigger would be better. Yeah, I think that's possible. If not, don't worry about it. Okay, so do we want to start from the top? Oops.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so if you can see that then, this was the document that came Friday and the intended presentation then for Thursday. So I can go through it if we want to read it. Jane, you want to present it to us basically line by line?
Yeah, it's
Now
more or
that's
less.
the document.
We can't see the document though now.
Yeah, I think it would be better if you download the document and not try to open it just in the email. I
Yeah,
have
then
it.
it comes up as the
Want me to share my screen?
slide. Okay, go ahead. Share your
Mr.
screen.
Chair, would you like me to share my screen or?
Yeah.
One of you.
Or I
Yeah,
can
one of
share
you
mine
can do
if you
that.
prefer.
No,
Jane has a full
I'll
laptop.
do it. I've got it right here. Yeah, I just got to find the document. Now I can't find it, darn it. Shoot. Boy, this meeting is turning out to be a gong show, isn't it, for the public? Gee whiz. Yeah, just a sec. I can't find it. Sharon, do you have it there?
Can you see it now?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm seeing it. Yeah. Is that on a Mac by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, can you scroll us up?
Okay.
I hope 10 years from now, the next commission doesn't have to do all of their stuff virtually. Okay,
Sorry,
are you
what was
able to
that?
see that, Jane? Are you able to
Yes,
see what
I
Sharon has
am.
posted now? Okay.
Yes, can you guys hear me okay?
On and off.
Yeah, you're unstable. Your
Can you
cell
hear me?
coverage is unstable.
It would be better if you weren't actually moving, driving, I think.
Okay, well, we're almost at the ferry landing.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay.
Should we start over? Yes, can hear you. Go for it.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, so as you can see, the up front, first thing is those are the issues that came out of our initial deliberations, right? Those were the issues before us, and so they are as they were in the table that we first started working on. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so the key reference document is the resolution, obviously, right? That's sort of like the foundational document for all our work. So if we continue going down, and Kevin, for your benefit, we are just going through this document I sent to you all on Friday, which is the document that is going to form our presentation, if you will. And then here I provided the additional sources of information that we drew upon over the last 4.5 months of our work. Excuse me. And what I thought would be useful for the presentation on Thursday is to perhaps just have 4 PowerPoint slides that introduces this information, and then have have those be on PowerPoint slides, and have then the actual findings, the actual proposed amendments and findings be in a document form as they have been for the other presentations. Sorry, we're just at the toll booth at the ferry. I apologize. So Sharon, do you want to continue going down? Okay, so this is proposed amendment A, which is our non-discrimination article. And Randy did not have any issue with this non-discrimination section. The only thing he had one concern about was the use of the 2 words affirmative action. And he maintains his position that that affirmative action is prohibited. I do not agree with him on this. I've provided him with an abundance of information that I think is legally sound, and he disagrees. So because affirmative action can be used in specific. Sorry, Sharon?
I'm sorry. Did he say specifically that it was prohibited? He said it is universally understood to mean a very specific thing. And he was recommending other language. Did he say it was actually prohibited to use it?
I thought I saw in one sentence, yes, he said that.
Okay, maybe.
I'd have to look at his opinion. Mr. Chair, Kevin has his hand up.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin. You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for Jane, if I may.
Please.
Jane, if this and Jane, if you're okay to answer a question, but is this similar to oversight, where it's the word that is causing the trip up, and therefore if what we are trying to accomplish here, sorry, I'm soaking wet. I can't believe how heavy it's raining right now. If what we're trying to accomplish here can be done without using a word that trips up some folks. Is that okay? Or is there such a strength in using the words affirmative action that we should stick to it?
She was,
Okay, sorry, we're just,
Kevin, she was
that's the last time.
explaining
Now
that.
it'll be quiet for the next little while. Okay, so Kevin, the words can come out and we accomplish the same thing. I am not concerned about removing those words. I also think that the reason King County has latitude to use those words is somehow they have this somewhat exceptional status when it comes to the issue of affirmative action. I don't know how they accomplish that, but I think what I would recommend to all of you is that we accept what Brandy has suggested by way of removing those two words. And I think we need to go, that's where we need to land.
Kevin, please.
Can you just highlight it in the document, or where is it in the document? I'm sorry. I see it. I got it. Second to last sentence, or last sentence.
In both paragraphs, yeah.
Yeah.
And I did take that from, this is an adapted version of King counties, as well as a combination of text from other charter counties. So I suggest we just remove it.
Why don't we just change it to action instead of affirmative action? Whatever act, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
I think let's have this conversation be open now, because I think we're deliberating on language and specificity in the document. I'm happy with open conversation.
Okay. What if we just say whatever action necessary?
Yeah, am I off mute or not? I'm sorry, I'm talking.
Yeah, you're off mute.
Okay,
We're hearing you.
I'm just looking at Randy's suggestion because I think that's what it proposes. I think that's exactly. He wrote to say the county council shall take those steps necessary to accomplish the purposes of this section, consistent with federal and state constitutions, laws, regulations, and applicable court interpretations. So he's suggesting the county council shall take those steps necessary to accomplish the purposes of this section.
I actually like his language. It's more to code. It's more the way I would legally draft something as opposed to whatever action necessary. So I actually,
Okay,
Want me to bring that in right now?
yeah, you could if you want to cut and paste it or something. The other thing I would say though, and I don't want to fight with our prosecutor.
yeah, so
Oh, I'm sorry. Finish this thought, and then I have
sorry,
a.
I'd just like to say something. So I'm gonna sound a little controlling here, Sharon, but I really would prefer to be able, if you could just highlight the sections we're gonna change, and maybe like I do, as the one who drafted this, I need to have the final editing of it
Okay.
rights, because I'll start getting very confused if you start if you could highlight. Sorry, if you could highlight and then just maybe paste the text in a way where it's really obvious for me to see, and then I'll.
Well, actually,
I'll
I'm having trouble looking at the text right now while I'm sharing my screen here, so I'm not going to do that. But I already
Okay.
took out question. I took out the word
Go ahead.
affirmative twice. Should I put it back in and just bold that section for now?
I'll tell you what, Sharon, I'm actually working in the document as well myself. So why don't I make the edits on this side, okay?
Okay.
If Sharon could do them though, so we could see them on the document we're looking at, that would be helpful.
Are you able to do that, Sharon?
Yeah, she was just now.
Okay.
Well, I was able to edit what's in the text that I'm sharing on my screen, but then I can't just go right in. I haven't been able to go. Well, maybe I can. Let me see. Looking for Randy's document. It's in. Oh, you know, it's a PDF. That's why. Hang on a sec.
For the sake of the flow to all here, I think if you're comfortable capturing what is spoken about and decided on as we go, I think we can manage both. Sharon doesn't have to save as we go. If you can type it in, Sharon, for our visual, that would be great.
Okay, I'll see.
Jane, are you okay with that?
Yeah, and I'll just sort of make the accompanying modifications on my end too, so we both have it.
As
All right.
time consuming as that be, I think it's the cleanest in the end. And it's what we were talking about doing with partly with the work party, and I think that's kind of what we set aside time for today. So
Okay.
I'm okay if it takes a little extra time. So far, and I have one addition. We've said from affirmative action to what was suggested by the prosecutor, which was the term. Let me just double check those steps necessary. And there are two things in that phrase: the county council. So they've added county or added council and capitalized every place that we just had council. That's another recommendation.
Yeah, yeah.
Kevin.
I thought this was referring to the entire county, not the council. I think
It's
that's
both in different places.
okay. The county.
The county up front, and then in the last sentence on both paragraphs, council specifically shall take action. So Randy's comment was for the last sentence, the council shall take whatever action, should read the county council to be clear. And then we're changing affirmative to just to whatever steps shall take those steps. So council shall take whatever steps or those steps necessary to accomplish this purpose. I keep trying to highlight it with my own. Is that okay, Sharon? Are you following that?
Not really, because I was trying to capture that text from Randy's PDF and I can't do it. So
Can you tell me again?
Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you tell me again what Randy's text was? And then I have something on county council piece too.
He
County
says the
council-
county council takes those steps necessary to accomplish the purposes.
Yeah, those is not as strong as the original point here. So I would say it is, you could change it from those to all steps necessary. I think Jane's original point of whatever action necessary, I think it should be shall take all steps necessary, not those. And then my other point is that on this last sentence, I don't know if you say county council versus the county. And maybe you could say the county, including the county council, shall take. Because I think in this last point, we want the entire county to take these actions, which would include not just the council, but all elected officials.
What's that?
Jane, are you okay with that change in the language? Did you
Yeah.
follow that?
Yep, I am okay with that. Well, yeah.
So
I-
have a,
What kind of count did you?
I just wanted to ask you guys a question though, because I think it could be useful to ask Randy to further clarify his thoughts on where council should be included. If there are instances where we want it to be county-wide, so to speak. So I think it's important. That's a very important distinction, and I think we need to perhaps clarify that with him.
I'm sorry, Kyle.
We're still, go ahead, Kevin. We're still
Okay.
in open format.
Okay, so I look, it's up to our discretion. Are we saying that this article is toward the entire county, or is it just the county council?
Well, the county government, but the county council would be the overseer of that, I'm thinking, you know? I don't-
County council is only responsible for the departments that are
True,
under
true.
their administration. So that's
True,
why I'm saying
yeah.
this is very limiting, that last sentence. If you just say county council, then you're basically saying that this entire focus is only under that branch. You know, there may be issues that the auditor can take with regard to elections that address these issues. There may be, actually there would be, there may be issues within the treasurer's office, and those are not the jurisdiction of the county council. And so I think it's important that last sentence, and I don't think we need Randy's clarification on it. This is just, it's our discretion. And the reason I say it also is he didn't have an issue with the beginning of this paragraph, where the county shall ensure, blah, 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 blah. And so I think this could say the county shall take all steps necessary. And you could even say the county, including administrative and elected departments, shall take. Something to clarify. And there's other language we've been using for describing the elected versus appointed departments, and I can't remember what that is, but when we go through and clean this up, we'll want to do that.
Okay, so including elected and appointed offices and departments?
Including administrative and elective departments, I think, and elected departments, I think is what he said. Right?
Administrative,
I don't know if administrative.
I don't think that's
I can't
correct.
remember the wording, the language we've been using to describe the departments that are under the county manager versus under individual elected officials.
Okay,
Although technically by saying the county, that includes everybody. So you can maybe just say the county shall.
okay, so I guess a question for you though, that I have, Kevin, is if we have language that says something to the effect of the county shall take whatever affirmative action, although we're changing the wording of that, I mean, does that not make it a bit vague and broad?
Well, that's why I was starting to try and specify. You could say the county council and all other elected departments shall. Actually, maybe you'd say officials. I'm sorry to be trying to edit by committee.
I'm just doing that so you can see how it looks, you know.
You could say the county council and all other, you don't have to say all, and all other, I mean, not all, and other elected departments or other elected officials shall. And technically, because this isn't specific on what those steps are, you're not mandating that an independent elected official, so this doesn't get into the previous argument that Randy raised. I think
Okay, and, okay. So Sharon, the language in Randy's memo is slightly different than what we have there. So it's going to be necessary. No, I don't want to confuse this further. I feel like it's good that you're doing what you're doing. However, there's a need to cross-check what because he's changed the language more than this. So and it's not the end of the sentence, for example, is altered. It no longer says laws, regulations, and applicable court interpretation. So this is why I'm just saying it's going to be very important, and I'm going to ask that I be allowed to do this, is to take this back afterwards and make the necessary changes based on his suggestions, because he's saying he's offering slightly different wording that we're not capturing fully here. And it's not problematic wording, it's just he doesn't make reference to regulations and applicable court interpretations. He shortened it up.
He did not say applicable court interpretations.
He said the county council.
Did. Oh, you're right. He did keep it. Okay.
Because I will say
Yes,
that,
yes.
I will say that one of my concerns, I recognize that this will be a debate I can have with Randy. I find it problematic to reference applicable court interpretations in a governing document such as our county charter. I find that very problematic because case law, just as he says, is an interpretation. State and federal constitutions and laws and regulations are laws. That's what the sheriff takes an oath on. The sheriff doesn't take an oath on an applicable court interpretation. And so that's something where lawyers and judges can go back and forth and say there's case law that argues this way, there's an interpretation of this court decision that makes this. Those can be elevated when there's an AGO, an attorney general opinion. But just referencing blandly court interpretations, I think that's problematic to put that in a governing document such as our charter. I can tell you that when I was in the Senate, if I tried to write something like that, every one of my attorneys would have laughed me out, including the attorney general. You can't have a law reference a court interpretation.
Okay, I agree. I don't have an issue with that. I agree with
So
that.
I would delete it after, I would put a period after regulations, state, federal constitutions, laws, and regulations. No, the and is after laws
All right, sorry. And regulations.
and no comma after laws. Sorry.
You're right. There's only 3 things in the list. Okay.
Sharon, just for clarification, he clearly said affirmative action is prohibited.
Okay.
And I do not agree. And I'm going to talk to him about that again tomorrow. I'm sorry, it's just not that black and white. And that's why you guys may recall I had about a gazillion email exchanges with him on that point. And I have, anyway, so I don't want to include it here, but that I find.
Right. I guess the question is it going to be confusing what we mean by that?
What if we include affirmative action, you mean?
Yeah.
No, we're not including it. We're keeping the words out.
What
Because
is-
it's that we're taking affirmative action out.
The one issue I would raise is if King County is able to use that language, I know nothing in state or federal law that allows any county in Washington state special privilege on something like that. And so that's the clarification. If one county has used it, I think the way it reads is just as powerful. I don't think we need to say affirmative action but if one county is using that language in law and it's legally binding, I don't understand how all 38 other counties wouldn't be able to.
So Kevin, this is an issue I have tried to explore and understand, and I haven't been able to successfully.
Okay.
And but I can tell you that somehow King County is exempt from that I-200 prohibition on affirmative action. And I don't know how that was possible, but they are. So I can't, yeah, that's all I can tell you. And that's why it would be in their non-discrimination clause.
Okay, I have a question for the group, and I want to kind of retool here a little bit. There's lots
Yeah.
to figure out. The distinction is what do we do with today's time to set Jane up for a conversation tomorrow? I have some fear that a conversation between you, Jane, and the prosecutor sort of throws off preparation for Thursday even more. So I want to make sure we leave the 2-hour period here with the other pieces of this, where we all want it and what we all agree on, and give you some leeway. The only alternative, I think, is to, I mean, I know everyone's days are pretty shot. The only other alternative is to try a work session between now and Thursday, which seems nearly impossible. So can we agree? Do we agree to move forward a little bit and to leave this language for right now?
Yep.
If we have time to come back to it, and otherwise to, I appreciate where you are with the sort of circular conversation around the specific language. I didn't have a problem with it before. I mean, I do see one of the points that, this non-discrimination clause is aimed at the entire county, all of its extended functions, to the extent that we can control that. And I want it to be as strong for the sort of the most distant component of county government as it is for how the county council moves forward. So I'm not sure how we accomplish that in wordology and this finer word work right now. So, and I appreciate that there's frustration. So can we move? Is there a particular piece you wanted to input on, Jane, other than kind of section by section? Do you want to prioritize any part?
I think we need to
presentation.
prioritize B, because that is specifically what I need to talk to him about tomorrow, really, is the next proposed amendment.
Okay. Any final questions on that piece? Just because I sort of shut it down. So before we do this then, what does the rest of the group want to hear back on, or do we, after Jane's conversation with the prosecutor tomorrow? Kevin, you're muted. No,
I
you're
had to
not.
eat a bite of chocolate because I haven't eaten all day and I'm dying.
No bueno.
No bueno. I'm curious to hear from Randy, and I didn't, in reading his memo and your back and forth exchange, I still feel like we're able to do some very bold things and some really important and valuable, take some valuable actions. And I recognize if the oversight word trips us up a bit, what I want to hear is how can we still accomplish a lot of what you've put forward, Jane? I think you and this committee have had a great deal of thought based on a lot of community input. And going back to the resolution that was passed last year, how do you really put as much of that as we can in the charter and advance it? And so I just want to make sure that we hear from Randy kind of how to get to yes on some of these things.
Okay.
I also,
Jane,
I just messaged my friend who's the chief of staff at King County to ask her how it is they're exempt from I-200, if in fact they are. And she's usually pretty good about getting back to me when she can. So as soon as I hear something, I'll let you know.
okay. Will you send that to the entire group? Okay.
I will relay what she says. I don't know if I'll forward because it depends.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I hear you. Okay.
So,
All right.
Mr.
So
Chair, if I could, sorry, go ahead, Carl.
I just wanted to say, I want to hear a response from you, Jane, on the one of the earlier questions. For your conversation tomorrow, are you planning to leave oversight wherever it occurs, or are you going to be scrubbing that or switching oversight for review on your own between now and then? Does that question make sense?
Well, I don't want to, I want to have a conversation with him before I come back to you guys with what he had to say and proposed revised language.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
now, by the way, I made an error. I included the reference to this Declaration on Anti-Racism and the Equal Rights of All Peoples, which we're not going to have now. And so I unfortunately didn't take that out. It was my error. It's at the bottom of that paragraph there. So I would clarify that for him. What I remember very explicitly, and Kevin, this is for you, in talking to Mac's assistant in King County, he did not recommend we try to push oversight in the manner we were thinking we might. He did not think that that would go over well. And I took that, I kind of wished you'd been on that conversation, because it would have been helpful for you to hear what he had to say. And that was following your conversation with Randy about this. So I really think that we have to, I like what you suggested just now, Kevin, which is we want to get to yes on this commission, and we want this commission to be something that can provide a challenge function in terms of, what is being done and what is not being done with regard to the full implementation of this resolution. That's what we want. We want this body to play a challenge function. And by virtue of the fact that it will have citizens represented on it and be led by citizens, it will be able to do that, because as we know, based on the research I've done and interviews I've had, the Law and Justice Council has no citizen representation whatsoever. We don't have a law and justice type of body in this county that has citizen representation in this capacity, in this manner. And that's what we want. And we want that because we've heard a heck of a lot about that, and that it's problematic. So where I want to end up in my conversation with him is, we're determined to create this commission. We need to present this idea to our full commission on Thursday. And we want to have a solid basis on which to be putting this idea forward so that it can be accepted and be on the ballot in November. That's where I stand in my call with him tomorrow.
Okay, I'm appreciating that. Okay, well, with that summary in mind, I'll just say, I don't know where the time is going into technical work. I guess we have about 4 minutes till public comment, not because we're about to wrap up the meeting, but because I had advertised it as closing at 5:30. So at 5:20, we'll just open it for the time needed. Let's move forward in the document then and make sure we are into the next section. So those are findings for the previous section. Now we're talking about section 8.10. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he had no issue with this one other than ensuring ensuring that the language, and he proposed some additional language, ensuring that the process of passing any proposed changes to the personnel system be made available for a period of 30 days to all elected officials, because he said any changes to the personnel system implicates the elected heads of offices who have staff who work under them. So it's a fair point. So what he's offered is makes good sense, and then serves the purpose of creating some efficiencies that James Wolfe is looking for. And Randy is, as one of the elected officials in our county government, he and all of them see all these personnel system changes because they have to. So this one is it's an easy fix based on his suggestion.
Okay, I may have skipped ahead. Did we deal with B? I think that was the bigger question. For my benefit, I'm sorry, Sharon, can you just scroll back up and make sure, because that was the one you removed, is that right?
I'm sorry, how far up do you want me to go, Kyle?
Just to the top of B.
Top of B? There we go.
Okay, so do we have everything? I'm sorry to us back. Did we finish that conversation, Jane?
Yeah, I think we did, as long as you guys are comfortable with what I'm suggesting to discuss with Randy tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. So let's bounce to D, section D.
This is what he said. He felt it wasn't necessary. Am I right about that?
No, this is, we're on D.
This section is unnecessary.
He felt that, Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, I read his comments as saying this wasn't necessary because of the non-discrimination.
Can I just read what he
reference to employment?
Right.
You have it in front of you?
Yeah, the reference to employment, which is in quotes, employment, in the proposed anti-discrimination clause applies to workers who are covered by collective bargaining and those who are not. We also recommend striking the phrase, quote unquote, affirmative action for the reasons stated above. Care should be taken in considering how this will be included in the amendments so as not to include a reference that is not adopted in another proposition. And that's it.
So Jane, in your sense, then the personnel system part, you know, if it is unnecessary in your mind and it's dropped, then there's obviously no more to talk about it. But I'm not sure we're agreeing on that, are we?
It's a good question. Am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute. Okay.
Nope.
What I remember us talking about was the notion that this, having it kind of reinforces the importance of this. And that was why we wanted it to include it. And remembering that the Pierce County Charter has a clause on non-discrimination, as well as this clause, right? So they have both.
So this section is unnecessary.
Guys, I just want
Okay,
to say
I'm gonna.
we should be doing public comment now.
Yeah,
But
thank
we
you. I was
can
just going to
finish
say
the
that.
sentence.
Wait, what?
I said, for public comment, you want to be as close to it as possible, but folks can finish their thought.
I think the question, this is a good place to pick it up in whenever we finish public comment. So the question is, does this clause cover a piece that is not otherwise addressed in the non-discrimination clause, and should it stand? Does it have a place as we've designed it? So let's table that for responses in a minute here. We're now going to change gears and move to the open public. Thank you, Sharon. Open public comment portion. And just for those who joined late, we are going until 6 o'clock, but we posted this for initially from 4 to 5:30. So we'll open that time now. And Micheline, thank you for joining us. I see your hand, and you have the floor.
Hi, everybody. I came by to thank you for your work and for bringing your expertise, your creative ideas to this process, a huge gift of your time. And I'm just here to say I support your work and thank you for everything you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Anyone else among our visiting or listening in county staff or public want to make a comment to the group? If you do, if you just open your video connection and unmute yourself, and we'll recognize you. Hello.
Hello. Hey, this is Linnea Anderson, and thank you. I don't have a lot to comment on tonight, but I just want to thank you all for your time and working on these issues on behalf of the residents, and working to make our county government really well functioning. So thank you for your hard work on this.
Thank you, Linnea. I appreciate that. Okay, any other comments for the public comment period from anyone? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment period and return to our deliberations. The question before us is whether Section D, as it's been proposed, 8.0 personnel system, should be included, or if under the PA's opinion it is unnecessary because it's been dealt with already. Jane, I think you were about to respond.
I was going to suggest that I'd talk to Randy about this tomorrow and ask him what is the harm in including this here. So I want to know what you guys think about that.
And by exemptions, just for my clarification, again, we mean all of the places where, because you are either a dual employee, portioned by the, service to the county and service to the state both, or elected, and therefore your responsibility is to the people who elected you. Those are the exemptions. Nonetheless, we're saying the county still has a responsibility to make sure that affirmative action, or whatever term we supplant there, and consideration for non-discrimination and those obligations continues. That's the, I don't, perhaps that could be combined, or some portion of the initial item 1 could be expanded, but I think that's part of what we've been after, part of the work we've been, trying to, we've talked at length about how, boards and commissions, whether it's implied or not a normal function to hold those members of such voluntary positions to the same standards. That's what we're trying to do. That's where we're trying to extend and to make sure that these JEDI issues are attended to in as commonplace a way as possible. That's what I read out of number 2, and I think that or any kind of anti-harassment or anti-bullying language that we settle upon is important. And I'm curious what the rest of you think. Is it enough for its own standalone place? Has it been addressed through the HR department? Kevin.
2 things. I think being repetitive on something that's important is fine. So even if it is stated elsewhere, I think having this in a standalone section makes sense. I would, just for the to be consistent, I would actually remove affirmative action entirely here and just have it say it's non-discrimination obligations, because I think that addresses our goal. But I do think having a separate section makes sense. And I already got a reply from King County, and I can share that when you're ready.
Okay, I'll take that in just a second. Go ahead, Jane, please.
Do we agree that we want to have some, we want to have a statement along the lines of clause 3, correct? That was being proposed also by operations for section 2.60 of the charter that related to that related specifically to the committees and the commissions and the board composition.
Any input before I respond? Sharon, anything to add? No. I would say yes. It doesn't say that specifically. Of course, it's kind of a place. Number 3 is a placeholder.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know that it's expressed clearly well enough anywhere else, or if it is in Commissioner C's conversations with Mr. Wolf, then I haven't seen or heard that yet. If it is, it's covered already. That's fine. But I think to Kevin's point, to reiterate it in multiple places is not a problem. Maybe these two subsequent sub numbers can be joined somehow. Kevin.
That committee, the other committee, actually said when in our deliberations, let's wait and see what the Justice and Equity Commission comes up with for this language.
Good point.
I think.
Okay.
I remember that. I am going so brain dead on charter stuff.
Yeah, no, that's correct, Kevin. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I needed to fine tune this statement. I just wanted to check, before I did that, I wanted to check back with you guys on including a clause that has this kind of language in it here in this section. And so I think we go for it, and I can offer something tomorrow to look at.
I don't know what the group thinks, but my sense, so if we decide through your, or if it's settled on through your conversation moving forward that there are a number of entities that are sort of are somehow out from under the umbrella, I think, and an inclusive sort of a statement to capture those in terms of our intention. Our intention with this is to include all peoples who are, and I was going to say the county, anywhere we use the word county, if we settle on the language that is, and I know you can't see my cursor, I'll stop doing that. Any place that says county, if we expand that to say county council and all, all electeds or whatever that ends up saying, I think it should also say boards, all of the pieces we included in some of the initial language. And we just call it out and say, you know, that it's, even if we drop affirmative action, says non-discrimination obligations to include anti-harassment, anti-bullying, etc. I think short is, so Jane, were you suggesting you've done a write-up of this already and have it
No,
somewhere?
no, not yet.
No, okay.
No, I
you
saw
need
some
more input?
language that, no, I was going to work with the language that the operations committee had. And I didn't have time to do that. So I was going to work from that language because I believe Amy Vera may have assisted them with that.
Okay. So that sounds like a two-parter. You're based on your conversation with Randy tomorrow, and then depending on the takeaway there, wording through Amy, or wording on that you have elsewhere, and a conversation with Amy. Is that right?
Yeah, I was sorry. So tomorrow when I talk to Randy, what I wanted to do with this was say, we hear what you have, we understand your position about these clauses not being necessary. We, however, based on the work that we have done, we feel they are worthy of being included here. And then the next step would be to look back at that language that the process committee had on anti-harassment and anti-bullying, and work with that language and insert a clause here that would be clause 3 probably. I don't
Okay.
think you can blend both the non-discrimination and the anti-harassment and anti-bullying into one clause. I don't think we can do that.
Well, I guess just to be clear, my perspective, number 2 isn't the anti-discrimination clause. It's covering the exemption, or covering our impression of the exemptions. Right? I mean,
Yes.
it's a catch-all for everybody that doesn't appear to be, that doesn't have the current non-discrimination or handbook, personnel manual, etc.
Right.
And Randy calls some of that out specifically in his letter.
Right.
Okay, any more input on Article 8 on Section D here? I'm just mindful we're leaving a lot still for you to do, Jane, in terms of work. So, okay, Article 9, then Charter Review and Amendment. Where do we sit here? I mean, taking into account what the prosecutor had to say. Basically, he didn't see any. If I paraphrase right, he didn't see any real legal piece here. This was for the commission to decide for itself about how it wanted to kind of govern or steer this piece of meetings. Meeting absence.
Yeah. He was saying that this doesn't require his legal opinion. It's really it's a matter up to the commissioners as to what language they want to have in here. And he was suggesting that we speak with some of the commissioners who were part of the commission last time on why they landed on this language, and I think it had more to do with filling a vacant chair, and that being a matter of urgency, which wasn't the part of the proposed amendment I was referring to. It was more the issue of missing a certain number of meetings without notification. That's the language that I think some of us felt was a bit stringent. So I think what could be worthwhile is just to look back at the language that's in our current chart and look at the language that I was proposing that was in Watcom's charter, and ensuring that and then trying to get a bit of a blend, that critical issue of there being a vacant seat still have place in this section, if you know what I mean, so that it's more, we don't create a difficult situation for ourselves as a commission if someone
Okay.
vacates.
Okay, so two things. Do you need input from the rest of the committee for this right now? And also, I appreciate, if you're underway, I saw you load. If you're underway and are headed to Blakely, we'll probably have some issues with your connectivity there. Are there other pieces that you would like from us on this section? I think I appreciate what you're trying to accomplish here. Kevin?
I just, before we lose Jane, I want to fill her in on King County.
Okay, please, let's have that now.
Okay. So from King County, they are not exempt to Initiative 200, which is what I was saying. I don't understand how any county could be exempt from a statewide law. Basically, to summarize, what I was told is they have a bold county executive and county council, and they're willing to push what they believe is right. And so if King County is saying the words, if they use the words affirmative action, then I don't see how we wouldn't be able to. Yeah, I think there are pieces of the initiative, as Randy was detailing, that are law. And so we need to abide by that, which several times in this document we say so. But there is absolutely zero exemption for King County.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. What I learned, and Kevin, you will recall this because you saw the email exchange, I think you maybe all did, was when I found out that they had an employment equity and affirmative action plan, a 3-year plan for their county government. And I brought that to the attention of Randy, and Randy said, let me check back with the PA's office in King County, and he did. And the senior deputy PA in King County said basically that the plan doesn't mean anything, and their interpretation of affirmative action is the same as Randy's. And so I guess King County has a practice of coming up with plans that don't mean anything.
I would strongly push back on that. And to be more specific, we have a bold equity and social justice program, and we make no apologies for leading with race. So if some deputy prosecutor wants to go talk to his boss, or maybe the county executive in King County, and share that point of view, I think that would be a fascinating conversation to be a fly on the wall for.
Well, I think so as well, because having been in the business of working inside government bureaucracies, you don't create a plan that doesn't have any meaning.
No.
You create a plan based on a policy position of your government.
I do think it's very important, however. So Randy is also trying to give us, advice to help us be successful. And Initiative 200 did abolish affirmative action in Washington state. It mainly, if you go back and read that initiative, it mainly refers to our university system, and also in methods of government hiring as well. But particularly, it was the intent of the initiative was spawned on by the university system. All of that said, Randy's point is not only well made, it is the law, which is affirmative action per se, legally defined, does not exist in Washington state. And I think we need to pay attention to that.
Right.
Use the word affirmative action for its general connotation, or that we can't have a bold program in place. What I'm hearing from the county that was referred to directly is that that's not the case. So again, I think I think we, all of us included in this conversation, prosecutor, us, and I think we're getting caught up on words, and words really matter, which is Randy's job, is to make sure we remember that words matter.
Mm-hmm.
But by changing the words doesn't change the goal.
Yep.
Kevin, is your impression that that's a piece of the reply, that the goals be changed by working with the words? Is that your assessment?
I didn't interpret that from Randy. I actually found his memo very constructive and thought-provoking. It's why I geeked out and spent too much time today reading Initiative 200 and the cases he referred to, and some other things which I don't have time for. But anyway, my point is, I think if there are words that similar to oversight, if there are words that trip us up, but we can still accomplish the bold goals we want to accomplish to make sure that everybody is treated equitably and equally, then let's do it. I have, like, you know, I don't care if you call me a charter review commissioner or the janitor. My goal is to try and make some really good things happen here. And so I don't care if we use oversight or affirmative action, if we can still accomplish our goals.
Okay, I have a sense that that this will be a conversational piece on Thursday. Maybe not, but I guess we'll see at that point. Jane, do you have enough then for your conversation with Randy at this point for tomorrow?
I do.
So far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, please. And then I'd
Sorry,
like to move on.
I just got a second text. The executive branch has reached out to the prosecutor's office in King County, and the clarification, I just confirmed, we are absolutely not exempt from Initiative 200 and never have been. So just to clarify that, now it's gone through all the channels in King County.
Okay. Okay, I think for section 9, I'm sorry to go back on D, I believe it is back one, Sharon, if you would.
I'm sorry, which one you gonna want to go back to?
Can you go back? I just wanted to, the charter review and the vacancy part.
Okay.
Yeah, just across the page break there. So what it says is essentially a vacancy in the position may be declared by 2/3 vote of the commission. So there's two numbers in there. Absent for 3 consecutive meetings, 2/3 vote. Do we have a plan to go back to Randy's recommendation and speak then with any of the last members, or will those in attendance on Thursday be enough to kind of pose this question and get clarity before we move on?
What I was going to suggest, Kyle, was given that I modified language I found in the Whatcom County Charter and brought it in here as a proposed amendment, what Randy's suggesting is, you know, find out why the change was made in 2012. And the proposed change was made to ensure that a vacant seat, there'd be as much chance as possible for it to be refilled as quickly as possible. And so I think that if the meaning of the clause, or the meaning of the section has been lost in that regard, we pull that back in. But what I recall as a commission, we talked about having a bit of an issue with is the strength of the language around, if you miss 4 consecutive meetings, you're off the commission. Sharon, do you recall that, where we were finding that language was kind of, Kyle, you seem to remember, like that language
Yeah.
just seemed a bit rigid. There was not enough nuance in that language.
Yeah, I think it should have,
Kevin,
it would be better to have it do the case, you know, a case-to-case thing, but you also don't want a vacant seat for an extended period of time.
Right.
Kevin, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. When we had that discussion, I was, at first, my initial reaction was that I was very concerned with that language. However, it was Randy who pointed out to us at the time that it is 4 consecutive meetings. And I think if someone misses 4 meetings in a row, that's a big deal. There could be language that clarifies, you know, maybe there's you say will be considered for removal from the commission. But I do think if somebody misses 4 meetings, that's an issue.
Jane?
And that's, I agree, although it seemed that language didn't allow for any you know, any circumstances that couldn't be explained, or that could be explained rather. So I just felt that, you know, if there is good and justifiable reason as to why a commissioner has to be absent for meetings. Let's say, you know, they've had a death in the family or something, or there's a crisis that happens, and the commissioner is still very dedicated to being a part of the commission. Well, then it seems to me that warrants a discussion among the commission as to whether that's a viable continuation. I just felt that the language just seemed very strict. It seemed there was no allowance for an exceptional circumstance. That was my reading of it, which is why I looked at this other language and I thought it allowed for a little bit more flexibility if these, you know, if unexpected circumstances were happening in somebody's life and I don't know, that I'm not gonna die on this hill. If you guys don't want to change it at all, that's fine with
Yeah.
me.
I'm just want to say, I'm
have a
not,
question.
I'm not either, but the thing is that it does say, you know, without prior notice. So you would expect that maybe there would be some communication within that period of time between those 3 meetings.
Well, this language is sorry, just for clarification for you all, this language is taken from Whatcom. This is not any longer the language of our charter. And if we refer to the language of our charter, it's a much, yeah, anyway. Mr. Chair.
Kevin,
I support the change recommending.
okay, were you thinking that there would be, I'm wary of a conversation about this item separately on Thursday, just because it may, in some of the same way, not derail us, but take a long time. So I would love us to kind of settle and support this and agree to kind of move it forward as you have it, Jane.
Can I
Jane, go ahead.
propose that I will, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to propose, I'm going to offer to relook at the text of our section again. Look at the memo that Randy wrote and a comment he made on this, and look at this language that I've proposed and ensure that we're not hamstringing ourselves in any way in terms of wanting to make sure that a vacant seat were filled as quickly as possible. And I propose that I turn that around for you all, you know, by tomorrow for you to take a look at again. It'll have to be later in the day. And we agree that we put that proposed amendment to the full commission, not for a lengthy debate, and we don't need to go back to Randy on it either. But at that moment, we can just clarify, because none of the commissioners who were on the commission last time, not that they've seen this, but none of them stood up and said, well, the reason we had language of that nature in the charter in 2012 was because, I mean, so I'm just going to suggest I tweak based on Randy's point. I offer back to you some tweaked language, and if you're in agreement with it, we go from there.
Okay, does anyone take issue with that approach? Okay, seeing none, let's plan to move ahead in that way. Thank you, Jane, and we'll hear more about that on, well, you'll get back to us before Thursday, and we'll hear about that on Thursday. Okay, section 10.20, which is section F, and judging by we have about 12 minutes by my count till 6 o'clock. So I think we're going to need room to have a conversation here about whether we extend or or meet again. So there was on this section, we've got some feedback from Randy. I've had a conversation with Amy Vera about this, but this suggested that council would essentially through ordinance develop procedure for purchasing supplies, services, materials, equipment, and so on, to include contracts and so forth. The feedback from the deputy prosecutor, Amy Vera, was essentially generally to suggest that we put kind of advisory kind of language as opposed to specific ordinance kind of language. Go ahead, Jane.
Sorry, just for clarification, Mr. Chair, I didn't change any of that language. That is the charter language. The only change I made was the additional italics. So that is what the charter currently says, is the county shall establish by ordinance, okay? All I added was such procedures will ensure compliance with Article 10, blah, blah, blah. And then we'd need to take out that declaration on anti-racism again. So there was no, I did not propose a change to the language.
I see. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
And if I'm not mistaken, the prosecutor just basically said, this language is not necessary. This additional language is not necessary because you have your non-discrimination section. And it is covered, contracts is covered in your non-discrimination section in the second paragraph of that section, where we talk specifically about the county's conduct in contracting.
Okay, is that sufficient then in people's mind? Because it's been covered before, Kevin?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So your understanding, Jane, is that the goal that we're trying to achieve here, which is the county shall not, not should not, but shall not contract with anybody who doesn't meet our anti-discrimination policies, that's covered entirely, and so we don't need it here. You feel that way?
Well, no, actually, if we felt that exemptions was worthy of repeating, then it was worthy of repeating under the personnel system, I would feel similarly here. The prosecuting attorney has advised us that it's not necessary.
I think on this one, I'd be inclined to just go ahead and delete this one then. Because I do think the language in the other section was pretty clear.
Okay, in the anti-discrimination section?
That it included contractors.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Chair, I'm okay with that if you all are okay with that.
I think one of the issues, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Kevin.
One of the issues that Randy is trying to push us toward is also something that we've discussed as a full commission, which is we're getting wordy. And remember that in the voters pamphlet, for instance, every single change we make will have to be in there. And so, if there's 5 pages, it's just going to overwhelm people. And so we've got to start pulling back. And the way we've discussed that as a full commission is when we're done, we're going to look at all of it and start Xing out stuff. I think the more subcommittees can do that, the better.
I hear that, and I appreciate that. I'm trying on another screen here to go back and find that language in 10 just to make sure. I mean, if it talks about contracts, there it is. I'm having trouble opening it up. And there's a whole section here that potentially talk about with, good faith effort and drawing out specific, minority-owned business groups. That's basically the finding in number 1. If you guys feel like that's covered in 10, it's more than contract. And I'm sorry, I'm trying not to hold us up, but to make sure I go back through through Article 10, and let's come back to that if there's time. At this point, I can have this conversation too with some of you offline. Okay, that brings us. Any other points on this on number F, Jane?
Yeah, I was just going to say that if we decide not to include this as italicized text, then we can move the findings that are here, 1, 2, and 3. They can be moved up under the non-discrimination section we're proposing as further justification for that proposed amendment to the charter. So we don't lose those findings, because those findings are based on information we obtained in the course of our work.
Agreed. Okay, I think I would like to see that happen and have that move around. Is that something in to keep the kind of the editorial control? Are you okay with doing that offline?
Yeah, I'm making a note of all these things. I'm making note of all the things I need to be working on here. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so for letter G, the Coast Salish Tribal Sovereignty Acknowledgement, I have this, and I think it's worth taking time because we did not do this. We did not do this last time. Are you able? Do you mind, Sharon, to stopping your screen share for a minute, and I'll try and share mine. Thank you. Okay, so if you recall, we wanted to to consider language, consider some specific language to acknowledge where it is not only First Nations or Indigenous peoples in our committee seats, and kind of expand the inclusion of this group, but to also expand our overall acknowledgement of shared space. And I'm not sure if everyone, can you see the document now?
It's too small, unfortunately for me. And I have my reading glasses on.
Let us acknowledge we reside in there.
Is that better?
It better be.
Okay. So for a little bit of background, so in the cultural resources part of the section and focus under the environmental resources division, this work has been done in large part, and this phrase actually, this statement exists already. It's not utilized widely in the county. This is a place where I'd like us to have the charter be a mechanism to expand both its visual or its visibility, I guess, and to consider how it might get utilized. The statement might get utilized more broadly. So the visibility of it and the use of it. So I don't have to read it for you, but it does. It's maybe some of you know this, but in talking with leadership at Environmental Resources, this has been both crafted and blessed by people on both sides, so staff of the county, and it is actually, I was informed today that this is actually this or something very close to it is what the Coast Salish people use, various tribal and nations use themselves in meetings. And so I'm hesitant to do any kind of wordsmithing on it. When we heard from Sam, there was some discussion about replacing, because Coast Salish is largely a language reference and doesn't adequately, covers some of the nations of Vancouver Island and across the, as it would be said, the imaginary border. It still is used as a phrase by most of the tribes and nations to self-describe. So Sam had recommended we consider the use of all Indigenous peoples who have ancestral ties, which I like, but the phrase above has already been vetted and is already used, and I would just like to include it in our work product. I'm not sure exactly. I'd like to take a couple minutes to just talk where we think, when we talk to the rest of the commission, where we think it would actually be, where it would live in the charter as it's written. I saw an email came back to me. I had reached out to Representative Lekinoff's office and received a reply from them. I would have to look at it. I'm not sure if it actually addresses my question or it says, help, call us back. But I had a conversation with Jane earlier today about, asking her office if she has any input on how we might incorporate this language into the charter. If you haven't looked at it, I would recommend, so in the Environmental Resources Division, there are 3 YouTube sessions that are recordings essentially that we're cross-hosting between Kendra and members of her staff with some of the tribal representatives of the region. I haven't been through all of it, but it's really great material, and some of the background to this approach is listed there. So I would like to have something to recommend for inclusion in our committee's work. I'd also like to have something of a blessing, I guess, to use the language moving forward. So Kevin, before I go on, please.
2 points or 1.1 question. I think this is sufficient. I've seen, again, actually, I think this is good. Let's go with this language. And I think it is chapter 1A of the charter. It is the very first thing in the charter, full stop, period. It is why traditionally Coast Salish tribes, when they journey to each other's area, the very first thing they do is their introductions and their welcome, and then their welcomes. It's why at a lot of different meetings that we attend, and unfortunately we haven't been doing this at the Charter Review Commission, and we should be, the meeting begins with this acknowledgement. And so I think it's the very first thing in the charter. The only minor edit I was thinking was maybe it says, because it's the county charter, it says San Juan County recognize or acknowledges. But I think saying we is, however it was worded, is okay.
I like the let us, just because it's usable at any and all levels within the San Juan County watershed area.
Yeah, but this is the charter that we're writing. This is specifically this document, and it is San Juan County's document. It's San Juan County's constitution, so the county government constitution. And so for those reasons I was thinking, but again, I don't need it. It's just, I don't know if it flows right grammatically to say we acknowledge, because the rest of the charter is not speaking that way. Or let us acknowledge. Who's us? The rest of our charter is not written this way. It's written legally because it's a constitution or a charter in this case. But anyway, like I said, I think it's fine.
Okay, I see your hand, Jane. I will just say maybe this is a place where Representative where Deborah can help inform us some. Jane, go ahead.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to understand from Kevin is if he's suggesting this appear like as a couple things here. First of all, Kevin, are you suggesting that this appear after the preamble at the very beginning of the charter? That's one question. My second question is, are we as a committee thinking of just putting this recommendation to the full commission on Thursday, or do we feel like we need to do further consultations, like with, for example, perhaps Deborah Lakenoff, or I don't know. So I really like the idea of including something, including a proposed amendment this Thursday. I'm just not knowing whether Kyle feels he's done as much checking out around about this, but I'm not sure.
I'll respond in just a minute. Go ahead, Kevin.
Sure. Kyle, you can respond to that.
I think, for one, there's not a whole lot of time left. I appreciate that there's a living document that's already, or a living reference that's already made. It isn't, I don't have any role or any right to, nor desire to make any changes to it. How it gets used in the charter is going to be something that I think if it's coming from this committee, it was ironically, it was one of those issues in the matrix very early on, and it's kind of a late bloomer in the conversation. So I think there is some feedback still to hear that I would like to hear. It may be in my inbox. It may be clear after a couple of days. I'm not sure, but I'd love for it to have a placeholder for Thursday and just have it. Lots of other committees have said, this is yet, there isn't conclusive, there isn't a, strong position from the committee for inclusion for the CRC right now. Jane was first, then Kevin.
I think Kevin wanted to speak, and then I'll speak after Kevin.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin, I'm sorry.
Jane, to your two questions. One, I think this goes before the preamble. I mean, this is literally the first item in the document. And I think that is the placing that it deserves. It preempts everything. The second piece is that I think, yes, this is a recommend. I think we should vote on this, and we should say this is a recommendation from our subcommittee to the full commission, that this is the language and it be the first item. Now, and I've spoken to a council member from one tribe and an elder from another, actually a council members from two tribes in this area, and one elder. And the biggest takeaway I got from them was make it simple. And they joke, and that's why they pushed me toward the whatever university it was. They asked me, and I shared it earlier up in BC.
Simon Fraser.
They were saying Simon Fraser, they have a longer description, but their basic 2 sentences will actually be used and actually read. And so they said, basically, keep it simple, stupid. They were like, do the acknowledgement and be respectful of where you are and whose land you are on, but keep it simple. And so I actually like this language, so one is, yes, it's a recommendation. We should vote on it and put it forward to the full commission. Number 2 is that it go in the very, very beginning.
Thank you, Kevin. Jane?
I'm assuming we don't need to get Randy's opinion on this, correct?
No.
No, okay, all right. And I thought something else that Kyle didn't share was really, really interesting for me, is that he was able to finally find the time, because poor guy's been slammed like we all have. But I was really happy to hear him say today that he was able to go through the MSRC material that they shared with us. The lack of reference anywhere in Washington State, in any county, charter or otherwise. Anyway, Kyle, tell them what you found out with the digging you did in that.
So actually, the digging was done for us by Municipal Research, and that suggested that there are some departments within other counties that use some kind of statement. It's not clear to me yet whether those were developed in-house or how they came to be, but some of them use it in text in the headline of some of the reports and or the outputs that they do, but I hadn't seen any evidence that any county has a consistent placeholder or a use of a statement like this, and not any consistent use or that MRSC found for any of their language in a charter, certainly placed, and no consistent use of a phrase like this, a statement, in consistent meetings in the state of Washington, which is profound. And I think I would agree with Kevin that placing this first and foremost is the right place for it, and certainly past the right time. Kevin?
So 2 things. First of all, Kyle, can you just text me or email me separately that language, just so I have it, so that I can stop being the typical white guy and make sure I begin our meetings with this acknowledgement. The second thing is that I brought this up early on in discussions. I thought at this committee, I know I did it in another committee, and it is my fault that I haven't circled back on it. So I don't mean to create an entire new topic. However, under boards and commissions, yes, I know I brought it up over there on that subcommittee discussion. So I just want to raise this to see if we think we need consistency from our subcommittee on this issue. Boards and commissions, I was pushing the agenda that we always say that citizens of San Juan County shall be appointed, and residents of San Juan County. And what I have pushed for is similar to what I pushed for with some outreach during COVID, which is, I think we need to change the definite, not legally residency, but I think we need to consider residency differently than we have in the past. And where possible, I would love it if we made those changes in the charter. And like I said, I think we have in the charter and the boards and commissions stuff that's come forward. But instead of just thinking residents the way we typically do, I think it's valuable to make sure that we also all acknowledge, not just acknowledge, but include members of Coast Salish tribes in our discussion. So what I've pushed for boards and commissions is that, for instance, our planning commission should have a member of a Coast Salish tribe on it, regardless of whether or not they are technically and legally under state or federal law or county law or resident of San Juan County. And similarly on all boards and commissions where appropriate, or where we can't say that we want a Coast Salish member on every single board and commission. It just won't happen. But where possible, we allow for that, or we allow for it, and then where possible, we make it happen. I don't know how to include that in our recommendations, but frankly, if that were just a second just a kind of hanging out their recommendation from our commission to the full CRC, maybe that would be valuable. But it's a change in thinking, and there was some pushback. Some people were saying, well, wait a second, you can't have a non-resident be on a commission or a committee for San Juan County. And I would argue strongly to the contrary.
So where does that, did I miss any hands? Jane, did you have your hand up?
No.
Where does that land right now? Where does that stand, I guess, Kevin, right now?
I can't remember where the other committee came down on it. I believe that there's representation. I think some of the boards and commissions that were created, we say that there will be a Coast Salish member. I think on our commission, don't we have that language in there? That we say there will be a Coast Salish member that we're creating?
There are more.
Yes.
There are multiple.
Yes.
Yeah.
This one is.
Do we have language?
One.
Do we have language that clarifies whether or not they are a permanent resident of San Juan County or something? We might want to add one sentence that says that says Coast Salish members, regardless of their, voting registrar or legal residency in San Juan County, just to clarify that.
Okay. I did have another, because Kevin, what you've just talked about is I'm having a bit of a hard time getting my full head around how you're proposing to accomplish what you want to accomplish in this regard, but I appreciate very much what you're getting at here, and indeed you have spoken about this before, so I'm just and yet again, time to do it. It's just
Welcome home to Lopez Island.
yeah. So
you
you may need to put some power behind, some muscle behind that, if you know what I mean, in terms of making it happen. And I'm gonna have to get off the call in a minute because sorry, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. My husband is just gonna get out of the car and get his truck, and I'm gonna have to drive home. So, but are we gonna finish up in a couple minutes or what?
I think we can.
We're not on Sheen. I think that's the last item, is it not? G with the.
We didn't talk about the recommendation I included in there, which was adding some citizen representation under the Law and Justice Council. That was a recommendation, not a amendment. And Randy didn't comment on it.
Mr. Chair.
Kevin.
Yeah, and just very quickly, Jane, on the last point, I would just say that if you can think of language, great. And I think what you were trying to say, you broke up, but I think what you were trying to say is that I will have to help push that, and I will. But if you can think of some language to add in the previous section regarding Indigenous peoples' representation, great. And if not, we can keep talking about it. But I think it is important on this subject. Is this a recommendation to the county council or to the sheriff?
County council.
Yeah, who appoints that? Is the county council appoints it?
The law, statutory law.
Yeah,
Washington State.
but it's appointed by the county council.
I guess so. The composition of it is outlined in the law. Okay, so so it's in the law. It says who is meant to sit on this body, and then I do not know exact answer to your question in terms of whether county council strikes it or I don't know.
So, Mr. Chair,
Kevin.
I believe the
Yes,
sheriff.
Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the sheriff is still on. Maybe we could ask for clarification. We just want the recommendation to go to the right person, and then, and I understand the state law says these entities have to be represented on that body. I believe there is the ability for us to expand it. So I wanted clarification that we actually have the authority to expand it, which if Randy didn't comment on this, I imagine we do. But I also just wanted to make sure that the recommendation is going to the right entity who actually does the appointment. And I think it may be the county council, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would seek
Sure.
clarification from Randy on that. That makes sense to me, but I don't know.
I can ask him tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
I had one other
Okay.
question for you, Kevin, though. You had also been talking in previous meetings about, that name change issue, right? And, putting forward something of that nature, and we never kind of landed anywhere on that. It was in our committee to talk about, the, proposed name changes for some discriminatory names of places in the county, and we never finished our work on that. So, and I don't know where, I didn't do anything with that, but that's kind of hanging out there, and it feels like it kind of needs attention.
Mr.
I
Chair.
have yeah, just one point. Is there not another version of, there's another proposed resolution for 2021 that covers that? Is there not, that expands the 31-2020? That, I believe that was our conversation last time. Kevin, go ahead.
I must have missed that. But resolutions don't do anything anyway. So and I apologize, I let this drop as well. My original feeling was that we would make this a mandate of the commission. And so maybe it's a subsection to whatever section where we establish the commission. And we say, and we're doing this kind of environment in the Environment and Climate Committee, where we're establishing a new department. One of the actions we say that department will undertake is a climate audit of the county. And so I do think it's within our jurisdiction to say we're establishing this commission, and one action that they will embark upon, and you can, to make it part of the charter more officially, you can also say that it's a regular. No, it doesn't make sense for this. Anyway, my feeling is we direct the commission to do an audit or review of all county place names, and make recommendations to the county council with regard to needed or appropriate changes.
Okay. That makes sense to me, Mr. Chair.
Sharon, you are muted.
Yeah. Okay, when we're saying places, are we including street names in that, or do we have to say street names separately from saying places?
No, sorry, the original conversation definitely included street names because we have some. So it's place, you could say place and street names.
Okay.
Because you talked about bodies of water as well, like bays and.
Yeah, that's, there's a big push right now for Harney Channel to have its name changed. And that actually, there's some fairly significant processes that need to take place for that. But this body, yes, so place names would include water bodies as well. The other thing is that the other recommendation was that as part of that, the county would, where appropriate, begin listing on their own maps the Coast Salish names for the places. So it's not that you would change the name of Orcas Island and on a county map, but it would say Orcas Island, and then in parentheses it would say the traditional name. Similar with Turtleback, similar with others. Getting those changed on the official maps nationally is a huge task through Congress and the USGS, but where appropriate, I think us moving in that direction makes sense.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Jane, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find that document I told you about. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the one that Kevin sent to us, and I think it was on March 1st. I think that would be the best reference to the language that was used in that document. Kevin Carter, I think, or did Kevin, it was the New Deal San Juan, Kevin, that you,
Yeah.
piece that you, that resolution that you shared that never became
You
something,
can
but
go to- you can, it's an ordinance, but you can go to newdealsanjuanislands.org and it's there.
yeah. So I'm not going to take this one on. I'm going to respectfully ask that somebody else find the text that you want to include that would mandate the commission to do this kind of review. But I just don't have time. I just don't.
Okay.
So
I apologize. I can't, I've got another Zoom call in CRC business when this one ends. So
Kyle, could we ask you to pick
Yes,
this up? And okay,
yes.
thank you. That would be
Absolutely.
fantastic. Okay.
Thank you,
What
Kyle.
what do we foresee doing with it for Thursday? I mean, I'm certainly it can be. Is it
Thursday, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Thank you,
Kevin.
Mr. Chair. For Thursday, I would say that it's part of the recommendation for the commission. So you just add a sub bullet there, a sub, piece that says 1A, whatever section that is. And then it says that within the first year of establishment, the commission shall do an audit of all place names and recommend changes. And then maybe a second bullet point is recommendation to the county. Maybe this is separate, that the county council direct pass an ordinance that all maps reference traditional names in addition to current names. I'm realizing that eating is a good thing, and maybe I should have eaten today.
probably. Mr.
Okay,
Chair?
any other items for discussion? Jane, please.
Two things. One, I've just thrown these findings together as best I could, and they may not be complete, but we're now down to really the 11th hour here in terms of pulling this together. So for the purposes of Thursday, they may just have to kind of be good enough, the findings of some of these things. Unless you have other findings you want to add. If you have a chance to read them through, that would be ideal, but maybe that's not going to happen before Thursday. Maybe we fine tune them after Thursday. So I leave that to you, but this is our document, and I think it's important that you guys all have a chance to read it. Something we never went through as a committee was the language that we wanted to use to describe the work, the tasks and functions of this commission that we're proposing to create. And so because there's only so much about the commission we'll be able to include in the charter in terms of language, but what that commission in more detail is going to be tasked with doing will need to be an accompanying piece. And I drafted something on that in that discussion paper I shared with you back on April 26th, but we never reviewed it together. And what's going to be important before Thursday, after I've spoken with Randy and sort of clarified with him what we're looking to have this body do, and assuming he's gonna, he'll feel comfortable that we're not trying to get this, this big oversight mandate advanced, which is a non-starter for him, but that we're aiming to do something, different than that. That we all need to agree on the text for this commission that we want to propose being put in the charter by Thursday. So I'll do my best with what I've already started on that. I will tweak based on my conversation with Randy so that he's clear we're not seeking for this proposed body to be an oversight body of the entire county in terms of all elected officials and stuff like that. But anyway, along the lines of what we've already been talking about. So I'm sorry, I don't know where that leaves us, but I'm nervous about getting all wrapped up by Thursday and whether we need to meet again or.
Mr. Chair.
Kevin?
Thank you.
Oh.
Jane, so the document you sent us in April, I thought was a really good outline. So I would trust for you to go for that. If there's questions, we can bring them up before the full CRC on Thursday. But I think it's good. I actually think the previous conversation with regard to place names and so on Well, I do actually appreciate that being in the charter language itself. I think being a little repetitive or having more detail on that in the tasks for the commission makes even more sense. I also wanted to clarify that, and I know you're not saying this, Jane, but just for the record, I don't think Randy is telling us he doesn't want the great oversight. I think what he's trying to do is tell us under the law, there's some restrictions. And so
yeah.
again, I look forward to hearing what comes of your conversation tomorrow, because
Yeah,
we get that we shouldn't say the word oversight, although I don't think that matters. Just like with affirmative action, it seems like you can say the word. It's really the actions that you take that break or
right.
the law.
Yeah, right.
But that said, if it trips people up, then get rid of it and do what we need to do.
Yeah,
And so my hope is that the commission will have oversight. And the way I think of that is obviously not the same way Randy is, but I do think that the oversight will be countywide, electeds and others. And that oversight, even if that oversight is just going into the auditor with suggestions on something and saying, we really need you to pay attention to this. And then, she or he at that point will say, yeah, awesome. And if they don't, this commission can also have the ability to go public and say, hey, here's our recommendations. And we really hope that everybody in the county follows it. And the public can pay attention to that too. That's still oversight. So I just wanted to clarify that my main point is that I don't think Randy personally is saying this. I think what he's trying to do is give us the legality of it. Which,
absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, any other hands so far? Sharon, you did have your hand up at one point. Please go ahead.
You're muted.
Sorry, well, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't get the mute unmute icon to come up quite fast enough. Yeah, I'm just saying I'm making myself as available as all possible between now and Thursday to work on anything with anybody or on my own at request.
you're
It's
amazing.
really helpful. Thank you. I would say, I don't know what the realistic turnaround is, but these notes that you've taken from today's meeting in particular might really help
We'll get them within the
how.
You'll
Okay,
get
wow,
them-
that's amazing.
Mhm.
Okay,
Awesome.
okay. Is there anything else that we wanted to cover? We were going to talk about findings, and Jane, I think, summarized that part well. If we can, we're going to get her any additional findings beyond what she shared with us a couple of weeks ago. And I think all of us have a little bit of work to do to help with Thursday, and there's certainly some work for beyond Thursday. I'm intrigued, maybe more than some of the other reports, to hear what kind of reception there is among the other commission members. And if there's a way that we can help you, Jane, in the actual delivery of Thursday, if we don't talk in person again, I'm all for that.
Okay. Excellent.
So if that's
Okay.
screen sharing to take some stress off, or talking about specific topics,
Sure.
however that can go about.
Okay.
Okay,
Excellent.
my thanks to all the people who weighed in and who joined us in the meeting today. Those of you from the general public and the county employees and electeds, thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording. Can you stop sharing your screen?
Do we want to adjourn the meeting first, or?
Yeah.
Just quickly before we do, and before you hang up, Linnea, will you give me a call tomorrow if you get a chance? I want to talk to you about some stuff on this.
You bet.
Thanks.
Great. Okay. I would entertain a motion to what Kevin's about to say.
I would move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All right. All in favor of adjourning?
Aki.
Aye.
Unanimous.
I
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
I want to thank the three of you. I think this has been a lot of work, and I think it's really, it's going to make some real changes, which is wonderful.
Substantive changes, which people will be very happy to see.
Yeah, I think so,
That's what it's about.
for sure. So if you guys don't think we need one more work